Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Wicked, Boq, Chapter 5. 2 weeks before Briscoe Hall reconvened for the new semester, Avaric returned from his home, the seat of the Margrave of Ten Meadows. He was bronzed with summer leisure and eager for fun. He mocked Boq for having stuck-up friendships with boys from Three Queens, and under circumstances, Boq probably would have let his new alliance with Crope and Tibet lapse. They are all engaged in Dr. Dillman's research now, and Boq just put up with Avaric's taunting. Elphaba remarked one day that she had a letter from Galinda away from her friends on Lake George. Can you believe it? She proposed I used to coach and come visit for a weekend, said Elphaba. She must be really bored out of her mind with those society girls. But she's society herself, so how could she be bored? Asked Boq. Don't ask me to explain the nuances of the circle, said Elphaba, but I suspect our Miss Galinda isn't as society as she makes out. Well, Elfie, when are you going? Asked Boq. Never, said Elphaba. This work is too important. Let me see the letter. I don't have it. Bring it to me. What do you want about that? Maybe she needs you. She always seems to need you. She needs me? Elphaba laughed coarsely loudly. Well, I know you're besotted and I feel somewhat responsible. I'll show you the letter next week. But I'm not going to give you a vicarious thrill, Boq, friend or no friend. The next week she unfolded the letter. My dear Miss Elphaba, I am bade to write to you by my hostess, the Mrs. Fanny of Fan Hall, and Shen of the Mikos clan. We are having a lovely summer at Lake George. The air is calm and sweet and all as pleasant as anything. If you'd like to visit for 3 or 4 days before the school begins, we know you have been hard at work all summer, and so a little change. If you would like to come, no need to write if you would like to visit. Just arrive by coach at Neverdale and come foot or hire a hansom cab. It's just a mile or two by bridge. The house there, covered in roses and ivy, is called Caprice in the Pines. Who wouldn't love it here? I do hope you come. I do very especially hope for reasons I dare not write. I cannot advise you as to chaperones, as Amma Clutch is already here, and so is Amma Clip and Amma Vimp. You can decide. We can hope for long hours of amusing conversation. Ever your loving friend, Miss Galinda of the Ardunas of the Upland, 33, high summer midday at Caprice in the Pines. But you must go, Boq cried. Look how she writes to you. She writes like someone who doesn't write very often, Elphaba observed. I do hope you can come, she says. She needs you, Elfie. I insist you go. Oh, you do? Why don't you go then, said Elphaba. I can hardly go without being invited. Well, that's easy enough. I'll write and tell her to invite you. Elphaba reached for a pencil in her pocket. Don't patronize me, Miss Elphaba, said Boq sternly. This must be taken seriously. You are lovesick and deluded, said Elphaba, and I don't like your retreating me back to Miss Elphaba to punish me for disagreeing with you. Besides, I can't go. I have no chaperone. I'll be your chaperone. Ha! As if Madame Morrible would allow that. Well, how about, Boq tossed around, how about my friend Arabic? He's the son of a Margrave. He's spotless by virtue of his station. Even Madame Morrible would quail before a Margrave's son. Madame Morrible wouldn't quail before a hurricane. Besides, I have you no concern for me? I don't feel like traveling with this Arabic. Elfie, said Boq, you owe me. I've been helping you out all summer, and I've had Crope and Tibet helping too. Now you have to pay me back. You ask Dr. Dillman for a few days off, and I'll ask Arabic, who is bursting to do something. The 3 of us will go to Lake George. Avaric and I will rent a room in an inn, and I'll stay a very short time. Just long enough to make sure, though, that Miss Galinda is all right. It's you I'm worried about, not her, said Elphaba, and Boq could see that he had won. Madame Morrible would not release Elphaba in the care of Avaric. Your dear father would never forgive me, she said, but I am not the horrible Morrible you think of me. Oh, yes, I know your little pet names for me, Miss Elphaba, amusing and juvenile. I am concerned for your welfare, and with all your work this summer, I see you have grown. Oh, say, vertigresian. So I shall make a compromise proposal, provided you can convince Master Avaric and Master Boq to travel with you and my own little Gromtic, who I am loaned your care and to care for you. I shall permit your little summer fun. Elphaba, Boq, and Avaric rode in the coach, and Gromtic was made to ride on top of the luggage. Elphaba met Boq's eyes from time to time, grimacing, but she ignored Avaric, to whom she had taken an instant dislike. When he had finished with the pages of his racing form, Avaric teased Boq about the trip. I should have known when I left the summer you were moving about in the throes of love. You developed the serious of chin. It misled me. I thought it was consumption at first. You should have at least come out with that night before I left. A visit to the Philosophy Club would have been just what the doctor ordered. Boq was mortified to have such a dive mentioned in the presence of a female. But Elphaba seemed to take no offense. Perhaps she didn't know what it was. He tried to steer Avaric away from the subject. You don't know Miss Galinda, but you will find her charming, he said. I guarantee that. And she will probably find you charming, he thought, a bit late in the day, but he was willing to live with that if it was the price of helping Galinda out of a tricky situation. Avaric was regarding Elphaba with contempt. Miss Elphaba, he said, does your name imply any elf blood in your background? What a novel idea, said Elphaba. If there were, I suppose my limb would be as brittle as uncooked pasta, and come apart with the slightest of pressure. Would you care to apply some force? She proffered a forearm green as a spring library. Do I beg of you, so we can set upon this question for once and for all. We shall conclude that this relative force you need to break my arm, as opposed to others you have broken, in proportionate to the realm of human versus elfin blood in my veins. I will certainly not touch you, said Avaric, managed to say many things at once. The elfin self-regret, said Elphaba. For you to have dismembered me, I might as well posted back to shiz in small pieces and been spared the tedium of this forced holiday and this company. Oh, Elphaba, Boq sighed, this isn't a good start, you know. I think it's swell, said Avaric, glaring. I don't think friendship requires this much, snapped Elphaba. I was better off before. It was late afternoon by the time they arrived in Neverdale and settled at an inn and made their way by foot along the lake to Caprice and the Pines. The two older women were in the sunlight by the Puerto Rico shelling string beans and wrist wrenchers. The one Boq recognized was Alma Clutch, Galinda's chaperone, and the other must be the minor of Miss Shen Shen or Miss Fanny. They all started at the side of the procession coming up the drive, and Alma Clutch leaned forward toward the string being spilling on her lap. Well, I never, she said as they drew near. It's Miss Elphaba herself. My uncle's whiskers, I never did. She pulled herself up to her feet and glanced Elphaba into her arms. Miss Elphaba stood as stiff as a plaster figure. Give us a minute to catch our breath, Decky, said Alma Clutch. Whatever the blameless heaven you are doing here, Miss Elphaba, it doesn't seem possible. I've been invited by Miss Galinda, said Elphaba, and my fellow travelers have insisted they want to accompany me, so I might find myself compelled to accept. I know nothing of this, said Alma Clutch. Miss Elphaba, let me take that heavy ridicule, and you'll find something clean to put on. You must be afraid from the voyage. You gentlemen will be staying in the village, of course, but for now the girls are in the summer house at the edge of the lake. Travelers made their way a path interrupted with stone steps in the steeper parts. Gromtic took longer steps and was left behind, and no one else was inclined to stay and lend a hand to a figure with such a hard skin and clockwork thoughts. Skirting the final growth of holiday flight bushes, they came upon a gazebo. It was a skeleton house of stripped logs, 6 sides open to the breezes, with a fretwork of arabesquing twigs, and Lake George, a mighty field lake of blue beyond. The girls were sitting on the steps in wicker chairs, and Alma Clutch was lost in some small work involving 3 needles and many colors of thread. "Miss Galinda!" broke out Boq, needing this to be the first voice heard. The girls raised her head. In an evanescent summer frocks free of hoops and bustles, they looked like birds about to scatter. "Holy terror," said Galinda, her jaw dropping. "What are you doing here?" "I'm not decent," shrieked Shen, drawing attention to her unshod feet and pale, exposed ankles. Fanny bit one corner of her lip and tried to revise the smirk into a smile of welcome. "I'm not staying long," said Elphaba. "By the way, girls, this is Master Avaric, the Margrave descending from 10 Meadows, Gillikin, and this is Master Boq from Munchkinland. They both have Briscoe Hall, Master Avaric, as if you can tell by the lovesick expression in Boq's face. This is Miss Galinda of the Arduenus, and Miss Shen and Miss Fanny, who can outline their own pedigrees perfectly well. But how enchanting and how naughty," said Miss Shen, "Miss Elphaba, who never gives us the time of day. You have redeemed yourself for all this time by this pleasant surprise. How do you do, gentlemen?" "But," stammered Galinda, "but why are you here? What's wrong?" "I am here because I stupidly mentioned your invitation to Master Boq, who saw as the sign from the unnamed god that we should visit." But at this, Miss Fanny could control herself no longer and fell on the floor of the gazebo, writhing in laughter. "What?" said Shen. "What? But what invitation are you talking about?" Said Galinda. "I don't need to show you," said Miss Elphaba. For the first time since Boq had known her, she looked confused. "Surely I don't need to bring out. I believe I've been set up to be mortified," said Galinda, glaring at the helpless Fanny. "I've been humiliated for sport. This is not funny, Miss Fanny. I have a half a mind to kick you." Just then Grommatic made a sound around the edge of the holly flight bush. The sight of the stupid copper thing tethering the edge of the stone made Shen collapse against a column and joined Fanny in uncontrollable laughter. Even Alma Clip smiled at herself and began to push away the materials. "But what's going on?" said Elphaba. "Were you born to plague me?" Galinda said tearfully to her roomie. "Did I ask for your association?" "Don't," said Boq. "Don't, Miss Galinda. Please don't say another word. You're upset." "I wrote the letter," heaved Fanny between her gales of laughter. Avaric began to chuckle, and Elphaba's eyes went wide and a little unfocused. "You mean you didn't write to invite me here?" said Elphaba to Galinda. "Oh dear, no, I did not," said Galinda. In her anger, she began to regain some control, even though Boq guessed damage had been done for good. "My darling Miss Elphaba, I would never have dreamed of exposing you to such thoughtless cruelties as the girls perpetrate on each other and on me for sheer amusement. Besides, you have no place in a setting like this." "But I've been invited," said Elphaba. "Miss Fanny, you wrote that letter instead of Miss Galinda?" "You ate it up," chortled Fanny. Has Elphaba never seen Galinda's handwriting?" "Well, this is your home, and I accept your invitation, even if it was written under false pretenses," Elphaba said, her voice even matter-of-factly as she stared into Miss Fanny's narrow eyes. "I'll go and unpack my bags." She strode away, only Grommatic followed. The air went stale with things unsaid. By and by, Fanny's hysteria grew quieter, as if she merely snorted and wheezed, and they grew still, lying vaporiously and unkempt on the flagstone floor of the gazebo. "Well, you needn't pierce at me with all your sniffy attitude," she said at last. "It was a joke." Elphaba stayed in her room for a day. Galinda came and went with a dinner. On occasion she would stay for a few minutes, so the boys took to swimming and rowing on the lake with the girls. Boq tried to fan himself an interest in Shen or Fanny, who certainly were coquettish enough, but they were both seemed besotted with Arabic. At last Boq cornered Galinda on the porch and pleaded her to talk to him. She agreed, a measure of demur demeaning returning, and they sat a short distance with a swing. I suppose I'm to blame for not seeing that ruse, said Boq. Elfie wasn't inclined to accept the invitation I made her. What is this, Elfie? Said Galinda. Where has propriety gone this summer, I ask you? We've become friends. Well, I can't promise I gather that. Well, why did you make her accept the invitation? Didn't you know I'd never write such a thing? How should I know? You're her roomie. By executive order of Madame Morble, not by choice. I cared to have remembered. I didn't know. You seem to have gotten along. She sniffed and curled a lip, but it seemed to be a remark to herself. Boq continued. If you've been woefully humiliated, why don't you leave? Perhaps I shall, she said. I'm considering. Elphaba says that to leave to admit defeat. Yet if she comes out of her hiding and begins to trip with the rest of you and me, the joke will be unbearable. They don't like her, she explained. Well, neither do you, I'd say, said Boq in an explosive whisper. It's different. I have a right and a reason, she retorted. I am forced to put up with her. And all because my stupid Amma stepped on a rusty nail in the railway station in Frodica and missed the orientation. My whole academic career up in snow because of my Amma's carelessness. When I'm a sorcerer, I'll have my revenge for that. Females are sorceresses. You could say that Galinda brought us together, said Boq softly. I'm closer to her and I'm closer to you. Galinda seemed to give up. She leaned her head back on the velvet cushion of the swing and said, Boq, you know that despite myself, I think you're a little sweet. You're a little sweet, and you're a little charming, and you're a little maddening, and you're a little habit-forming. Boq held his breath. But you're little, she concluded. You're a munchkin, for God's sake. He kissed her, he kissed her, he kissed her, little by little by little by little. The next day, Elphaba, Galinda, and Gramatek, and of course Amma Clutch, made the 6-hour trip back to Shiz with fewer than a dozen miles between them. Avaric stayed behind to disport himself with Fanny and Shen Shen. The pestering rain took up the outskirts of the Shiz, and the august facades of Craig Hall and Briscoe Hall were nearly obliterated with mist by the time they were there, at last, home. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.